How's the
Oh,
show
look,
going?
it's going very well. People really are impressed with the range of bikes. The main standout bike really is the Engrich Richardson engineering bike.
That's the one made locally.
So,
Well, we'll have a good look around. Thank you.
yeah, have it. Good on you.
Yeah. So this is one of the stars of the show. This is the Engrich. So it's made locally here. I don't know why, but it's a pretty cool bike. Inspired by Britain and Britain. How does it relate to Britain? I don't think it does, other than that it's here in New Zealand. Again, instead of cast parts, everything's CNC. All these little brackets that you might find cast on other bikes, they're all CNC. These covers, that's what they were saying. So they must have CNC'd all these little covers here. Is that a separate gearbox? I wonder if they made the gearbox or if they lifted that from a Yamaha or something. Looks like the actual frame might be CNC'd as well. There's a bit of weld. I can see the headstock is welded in. And it's got this bolted-on subframe. Sort of this big swing arm with the shock in it. So the rear suspension looks like the whole thing bolts on and off. Even a CNC side stand. A little bit of CNC fell off there. Okay, well that's a bike. I think it's very interesting. I don't think they did it necessarily to sell. I think that was the point. They were just doing it because they could. If you were going to make a bike, jump into the semi-custom handmade motorcycle segment, is a 1200cc parallel twin the bike that everyone's looking for? Not convinced about that. When I was hoping to chat to someone, so I thought I could use my phone camera to make up for it.
Yeah.
Look, I saw this bike when Damien, who got me involved here, mentioned that this was going to be here a year or two ago, and he sent me to the site, and I had a look at it because I'm very interested in motorbikes, and I read about it and what you're doing, and I'm interested in the motivation.
Yeah, okay.
But you're involved in the CNC part, so you were brought in.
Right from the very beginning, the
You
design,
have been.
the whole thing.
Right, you're one of the three guys or whoever.
Yes.
So, because I looked at it and I thought, okay, great, someone's making a bike,
Why would you do
says,
that?
there's a couple of things strike me about the bike, how everything that can be made with CNC is made with CNC.
Well, the reason for that.
What's the reason?
Myself and my two friends, Warwick and his son Lee, they run a business which is CNC machining.
Yes.
So that's their business.
Yes.
Okay, Right, now, I'll tell you a little bit about the history of how this thing got going.
Yes.
I don't know how much you know about motorbikes and all that, but, for years, say in the 1950s and 60s, British twin-cylinder bikes, Triumph, Norton, BSA.
All British bikes
They were
twins.
the kings of the road, 650 twins.
Yes.
So they were the fastest things.
Up until the Japanese. Everything was a parallel twin.
And then swept it all away. Okay, right.
Which is a very interesting part of the story because I'd like to hear why you went with that.
Yeah. Me and Warwick, we grew up with British bikes. Okay?
Yes.
And first of all, we had a single-cylinder bike, and then we had Triumph twins, like everyone else did, and they were the greatest things.
Yes.
Now, those bikes, they had great performance, they're beautiful-looking bikes, and they were sort of the standard of the day, and with a twin-cylinder motor, it fits nicely into a motorcycle frame. It looks good, it sounds good, but it's got one terrible problem, really bad vibration.
Yes.
And so, but we've always loved those bikes because we love the sound of them, we love the look of them, but we hate the vibration.
So you were sold on that layout.
That layout, because just
that's
our
you
age.
guys.
This
That's
was
you
our
guys.
era, and that's what we love.
That's what it comes across
and
like.
we still do.
You didn't make a decision to research the market and go, the market's looking for a parallel twin.
No, which they are now. There's a hell of a lot of parallel twins now.
Right.
A lot of Japanese bikes now, they've gone back to parallel twins again.
Right.
Yeah, but of a different layout. Now, I don't know if you know anything about crankshafts and all that, but see that picture there?
You've got the balancer.
Yeah, but see the two pistons?
Yes.
They go up and down together like this.
Yes, which is what they always did in the old British bikes.
Now that is what gives them the sound, because you have evenly spaced firing intervals. When one piston is firing, the other one's on the induction stroke. So it goes left, right, left one fires, right one fires, left one fires. So one turn around of the crank, one fires, one more turn, the other one fires. And that's why that's referred to as a 360-degree crankshaft. When the two pins are in line with each other, they call that, so it goes round like this.
Maybe you could explain to me. I always wondered at the time, because I'm a 70s kid, I always wondered, why did they make parallel twins like that? Because the BMW, their idea was that they would be an opposed...
Okay, but I mean, it's to do with the sound of it. When you have a crankshaft like that, on a 4-stroke, you have evenly spaced firing intervals. And it gives it a smooth, pleasant look.
You're saying because if you went on the other side, it would be uneven.
No, but see, something like Japanese twins, they went up and down like this.
Yes, or do the Japanese go up and down separately?
Well, some did and some didn't.
Right,
but most of them went like that.
Okay.
Now, that gives it the sound of more like a little Briggs and Stratton, not an even, pure
because as you're
sound.
saying, if they both go up and down, one fires, the other one's induction or whatever, and they sort of
bang,
opposite.
Bang, bang, bang. One every turn.
And if one was down, it would be 1, 2, 1, 2,
exactly.
1, 2.
That's right. Now, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
But I just don't like the sound of it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to have a 360-degree parallel twin, but which doesn't vibrate.
Obviously, you've
now,
got
when you
to
make
do
those bikes, those Triumphs and all that, they started off at 500cc, right? And all right, they vibrated, but not terribly bad. And all bikes vibrated at that time, so they didn't kind of think anything of it. You know, that was the norm.
Yes.
Then they enlarged them to 650, then they enlarged them to 750, and the vibration got worse and worse, until bits started rattling off them. And that it wasn't good.
Right.
And so we thought, we want to make a bigger one still.
And they never balanced then.
No.
They never did.
No. Well, they had weights on the crankshaft.
Just that, just for the pistons.
The best you can do with that is just partial balance.
Yes.
You cannot fully balance it like that. It's just a physical impossibility.
Right.
Yeah. And so we didn't actually come up with this idea. This came out of a book. Now,
are you using a balancer that's driven off the crank and does its own thing? Is that the idea?
A lot of modern bikes have gone back to parallel twins again.
Yes.
And they use shafts to balance it. They have shafts with an eccentric weight.
Right.
Okay, they use that. Now that works, but it only gives actually partial balance. It doesn't fully balance it. Because you've got rotating things and the pistons are going up and down in a straight line. And the balance weights are going round and round.
Yes.
But with this, that thing goes up and down in a straight line. So that's the third.
And this is your one.
This is ours here.
This is yours.
Yeah.
So this is a third piston basically, but it's just
yes,
a...
but it's pointing in the other direction.
Right, and that's why you've got this big
by a deep sump.
Right.
That's right. It's got to be fairly deep.
Right.
Because you still have oil in the sump. It's still a wet sump motor.
Does this hit the oil or?
No, it doesn't.
No.
Okay. But we see we were very conscious of the fact that would be deep and
yes,
hit the oil.
Yes, you would.
So what we did, the stroke of that balancer crank pin is only half as much as these.
Right.
That means the whole
thing. And is it heavier as a result?
You've got to make that twice as heavy.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And now we were able to make that weight small in dimension and still have weight because it's made of tungsten. You feel that.
Beautiful. Oh, I saw this sitting there.
Yeah.
So that's tungsten.
That's tungsten.
I thought it was a bit of CNC that fell off. That's what I said in my video. Wow, that's off a lathe like that.
Yeah, we just machined it like that, yeah.
Wow, ooh, that
is
very heavy.
That's right. So
that
that
feels
weight
heavier
could be
than...
kept compact. And so therefore not dipping into the oil.
That's heavier than brass.
Way
That feels really heavy.
That's 3 times as heavy as steel.
Wow, that really feels heavy. Yeah. That's amazing.
I just thought I'd bring that along for people to see.
Okay, and that just sits in obviously it sits in a guide of some sort.
In a circular sleeve.
Gets oiled maybe?
Yeah, it gets oiled, just to the general oil flying around inside the crankcase.
Right.
That lubricates it.
So you're just adding the one extra bearing.
That's right. Now this system here is a balancing system that makes no noise. Like when they have them with shafts, the shafts are gear driven, and a lot of them they whine. You can hear those gears whining.
Yes.
So this is just another big end like that, and it's just slide. It makes absolutely no noise. And apart from that, this gives absolutely 100% balance. With the ones with the shaft, it's still only actual partial. It's pretty good, but it's not as good as this.
So the motivation or the inspiration is in fact your own what you like, which is these bikes, the British
That's
twins,
right,
the parallel
But
twins.
a modernised version.
The sound of that
Yes,
is
yes.
important. It's
Yeah, and the look.
so
Sound
important
and the look.
that you do that
Yep.
instead of doing something else
That's
with
right.
the engine.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you want to keep the parallel firing
Yes,
or the
that's what we
opposite
wanted.
firing.
That was the object of the whole thing.
So when you do that with the engine,
Yep.
why does the bike
Okay.
look
well,
like
that's,
a...
okay. Well, okay.
So, because that's a case in point, because you guys are inspired by
Yes.
the nostalgia of this
Yeah, okay.
engine design,
Yeah.
but that bike doesn't fit that.
No, I know. You're right. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
Now, my friend Warwick, he's the same age as me.
Yes.
We like the classic British
Yes.
bike look. His son Lee is the next generation.
Yes.
Now, because
Like
he
this.
had a vital hand in this whole project.
Okay.
Yeah. And he preferred the style of a modern bike. Which I would have
Basically a
preferred.
90s forward, like a
Yeah, I know,
900
that's right.
SS from the
Yeah, I know,
90s,
exactly.
you know,
I
it's that
agree.
style.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got your part, you're doing your
Well,
part.
okay.
He's
I'll
doing
give you a little bit
that.
of background. I'm a qualified mechanical engineer.
Yes.
I went to university,
Yes.
studied mechanical engineering.
Yes.
And so I was able to do all the calculations
Yes.
and all this, everything like that,
Yes.
loads and stresses and
Yes.
stuff like that. And I'm also a machinist. You know, I can make stuff.
Yes.
And my friend Warwick, he's a tool maker, a highly skilled man, you know, superb machinist.
Yes.
I
Yes.
designed the engine
Yes.
on paper.
Yes.
But Lee, who's the son, he is very good on computer-aided design.
Yes.
And so he took the paper drawings
Yes.
and he put them onto a computer to CAD. Now, once you've got that drawn up on CAD, you can then put it in a CNC machine and mill the patterns to make the castings
yes.
from the CAD drawing.
Yes.
Yep. And so he's ace on that. I'm not good on that, on the computer side of it,
And,
but he is.
and does he do
He did the style.
the styling?
Yeah, because he's the younger guy. Well, he made it of that style. Myself, I wouldn't have made it that style.
No,
would have
I
made
wouldn't
it,
have thought you
I
would.
would have made it.
In all honesty, I wouldn't have
Yes,
thought you
no,
would.
okay,
That's
yeah.
basically why I came and asked.
Right,
I was
okay.
asking exactly this.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this is what I'm into design and the style
Oh, I
of
see.
bikes over
Oh, yeah? Yeah,
over
okay.
decades. You know, I'm fascinated by
I
bikes and
see.
bike and car
So
design.
in other words,
it's something I'm into.
You recognise that the two are not compatible.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
100%
They're just
agree with you.
not the same thing.
No, it's not.
This is not even a current
No, it's
thing.
not.
It's actually someone, because you can tell when someone's 60 years old or more and
Yeah,
designs
yes,
that,
I made that, yes,
but when
right.
someo's 30 or 40,
Yes.
you might design that, whereas a
Dead right.
20-year-old wouldn't
Yes,
design that.
no.
And so
Yeah,
usually you've got to
dead right.
pick your, it's almost by age
Yes,
or
it is.
ability
It's
of
a
the designer.
generational thing.
That's right.
Yep,
And they'll
it is.
design something that works.
Yeah.
But then you got to go, well, who are we selling it to?
Yeah,
And
I
sometimes
know,
custom
I know.
bikes are not bought by
Yes.
20-year-olds.
No,
they're
no,
actually
they're
bought
not.
by,
No,
and
right,
certainly
but
in
mine,
parallel
yeah.
twin bikes,
Yeah.
I don't think would be bought by 20-year-olds
No,
either.
I know, that's right.
They might be bought by people.
Well, okay, my feeling was you're falling between two stools.
Yes,
The
very
guys
much.
who like the motor won't like the bike. The guys who like the bike won't like the motor.
Quite
That is-
likely.
I would not have made it of that style.
Yes. So if you could make it a style, it's very
Yes.
hard to go, well, what is a modern bike that looks good?
To be honest with you, I don't like the look of any modern
I have
bikes.
this problem too.
I
After
just
the
don't like them.
90s, I've sort of lost
beyond
touch.
a certain point, I just don't like them
Or
anymore.
when I do,
Yeah.
it's a bike that's been retro style.
Yes,
And then
that's
it's like,
right.
but that's playing on
I
my
know,
old stuff.
That's right, exactly.
That's not modern.
That's not a modern bike.
That's
It's
right.
made modern, but it isn't actually a modern bike.
And so it's a very difficult thing to
It is,
do,
that's
is
right.
to
Yeah,
package
yeah,
an
yeah.
old engine.
yeah.
I know Brooke Henry, who is he's actually he's a Kiwi, but he works in Australia. He has
Yeah.
a company called V2. They make
Yes, Ducatis.
Yeah, Ducati.
Yes,
So
I
he
know.
rebuilt my
Yes.
engine, and,
Yes. Oh,
and I know
right.
him, and he's a great guy.
Okay.
Incredibly busy. CNC, machines, castings. He
Yeah.
has all the factory castings, everything.
Right, yeah,
And
amazing,
he
yeah.
has this. He remanufactures the V-twin
Yes.
as a new engine.
Yeah.
He makes the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's called the Ritorno, and it's
Right.
up-spec'd and everything, and
Yeah.
you can buy a whole
Brand new.
1970s
Yeah,
Ducati
Ducati
engine
motor.
brand new.
Yeah.
And he's put it in a bike, and
Yeah.
the bike has got this problem with this kind of
Is
thing.
it?
It's sort of
I
put
haven't
into
seen
this.
what the whole bike looks like.
It's they made this one where it's sort of like, well, they needed to put it in something,
Yeah.
and it's not quite right. It's like it's not quite right. This is better actually.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Okay.
this looks like a monster. It looks like a sport bike. You know, what they used to call
Well,
the
a naked
Ducati
bike.
monsters,
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
naked
know
bike.
I know the one you mean.
That kind of
Yeah.
styling.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Which I do quite like.
Yeah.
When those came out, that was an interesting. I like naked bikes
Yes, so
because
do
they
I.
hark back
Yes,
to
they do.
our old
Yep.
bikes.
Yep.
But he's got that problem as well, and I've often wondered, I should bring this up, the same dilemma up. What do you package this classic engine in?
Yeah.
What do you
well,
put it
see,
in?
Our original sort of intention was we should make two motors and make one bike of one style and one bike of the other style. But because this is, we are not experienced engine designers, you know, and so when you start making a thing like this, even when you're already just making it, you already come up with things we should have changed this.
Of course,
everything you do is like that. You know? And so to make this really spot on, you'd have to make a second iteration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's just the nature of it.
Yes.
You know?
I mean, to take this to another level, you'd have to get investors and
Huge
do the whole thing.
That's right. And that's why, I mean, we had that idea in our mind, but the practical reality is you just need a vast amount of upfront money.
You've got an engine.
Yep.
That's your big thing. That's
the big thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
All the other stuff
you can make,
is
other
whatever.
people can do that. Yep.
Could one create a kit set bike? Here's the engine. It's got these areas to fasten your subframes.
Right. You build the bike.
You build the bike.
Well, that's another business model we had in mind.
Yeah.
You know, you've probably heard of an outfit called S&S in America.
Right. Yes.
They make Harley type
yes,
engines.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
those kinds of bolt-on people.
They started off making big bore kits for Harleys, you know, and then they made different camshafts.
And you can buy a whole engine.
And then cylinder. Now you can buy the whole
That's
engine.
right.
Yeah. And they sell something like 8,000 of those engines a year.
Right.
Yeah. And so they sell those engines, and guys put them in customised bike builders. You can put them in anything you like.
And
you
you can get so much of that as bolt-on parts,
Yes,
rather
right.
than you don't have to make them.
No.
You can buy them out of
You can buy
catalogs.
it, right, yeah.
That would be
But
an
the
interesting
engine is the
thing.
heart of it, you know. And so we thought, well, if we were to try to make it to sell, just selling engines alone would probably be a better bet than trying to sell a whole motorbike.
It's a bit high. How does that fit with the old, like if you tried to do a Triumph, whatever, a Bonneville kind of look?
Yeah.
This would be quite a bit higher? Would the case be quite a bit higher?
Because
Because of that,
has to be a bit deeper.
Yes.
Because we still have the oil level. It's still a wet sump motor.
Right.
And so the oil has to be below that weight.
How low does this go? Does it go to that case line? Or?
No, it goes to about here somewhere.
So there's a lot of...
This can hold quite a bit of oil, but we've got a baffle plate under here.
Right,
so
okay.
It doesn't aerate the oil, you know.
Right.
But the oil is all below that weight.
Right.
And that was the motivation, to keep this business as short as possible. So it didn't.
You'd have to make a little trough for it, wouldn't you? Around it, and then put the oil around the outside.
Dry sump part,
you could cut up maybe a couple of inches even,
you could do
or
that.
at least that amount.
Yes, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
That's quite right, yeah. But at the moment, we've just kept it as a wet sump. But you'll notice that the sides of the sump, see how it's beveled on the sides?
Right.
So although it's fairly deep,
yes,
it's got no ground clearance problem.
Yeah.
Because it's beveled on the side. You could have a very great lean angle and you still wouldn't hit the ground.
Now, what are you doing about gearboxes, for example?
Okay, the gearbox is from a ZZR, no, hang on. Yes, a ZZR 1100 Kawasaki.
Right, is that a current one? Because I don't know modern bikes, but is that a...
Well, that model of motor started off in 1984 as a GPZ 900, it was called. And then it was enlarged to 1000, and then to 1100.
And is it always the same gearbox?
It's had a 30-year run.
Yeah.
You know, and we got that as a second-hand gearbox.
Yep.
You know.
Is this the only one?
Yes.
Oh, right. So this is the only one. Okay.
We've only made one.
Oh, okay. So yes, naturally you'd have a gearbox out of something. Yeah.
Britain and stuff had a
the Yamaha
Suzuki
gearbox or something like that. Yes.
You'd be mad to make that.
Yeah.
No, that's right. There's no point.
Yes.
And well, another good thing with the Kawasaki gearbox, it's a 6-speed box for a start.
Yes.
But secondly, in the hub of the clutch, there was a torsional vibration that can sort of a damper around, a cush drive they call it.
No cush drive.
Because
it's just that.
Two big pistons, you know. If you had it solidly connected, it would be thumping.
Yeah.
But that cush
Especially
drive,
with a chain drive, you've got a chain. Yeah.
It takes up. It's absolutely smooth, the transmission.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that was a very suitable gearbox because we looked at Yamaha, Suzuki.
Do they use
Kawasaki.
cush drives? And that's what they're using. They're not.
No, only the Kawasaki had a
Oh,
cush
I
drive,
see. Interesting.
you see. And so we chose that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's in the in your casting, is it?
Yep.
The gearbox is
All
in your
integral.
it's in your
All
casting.
unit
You put it in.
construction. Yep.
Right. And does this whole rear bit, does this bolt on to the body? This whole rear suspension unit?
Well, the swing arm, basically that frame, it's a big spine that goes along like that. See that there?
Oh, right. So the frame does go over the top. I
It goes
thought
over the top of the engine,
right.
comes back down to here.
I thought it might have been a bolt on the front, bolt on the back,
it's not.
subframes.
No, it connects
Okay.
right across. And then these outrigger plates, they carry the pivot for the swing arm.
In fact,
See that
you'd, with this kind of parallel twin, you couldn't really do that. You really need a V to sort of
Well,
put,
that's
to
right,
attach.
that's the Britain style.
Yeah,
did that.
you'd need a V to do that
Yes, you
properly,
would. Yeah,
safely.
yeah.
Here, there's not really anything there
No,
to
no,
bolt
there's not.
onto.
No.
Okay, so you've got the frame over the
It's got
top.
a
There's
spine
a-
style frame, and then just the two big tubes. And the engine completes joins that all
Yes.
together.
And then this bit here is bolted
Well, it's
on,
bolted
or
to the main spine.
it is there?
Yeah, this is the
bolted
spine
there.
part here.
Okay.
It's bolted here.
Bolted there,
Yep.
and the swing arms there.
Swing arm pivots there, and that's the shock absorber that attaches
Okay.
to those lugs there.
Is there anything tricky about that, or pretty generic?
Not really.
Kind of a.
That swing arm
Obviously it's
is
progressive.
actually taken from a Triumph Speed Triple.
Oh,
We didn't
okay.
make the swing
Yes,
arm.
yes, I
We
did
used
notice that.
Yep. And the rear wheel and all that is taken from a Triumph Triple. And all this linkage
Okay.
business here for the suspension,
Yes.
well, the geometry of it is all copied from the Triumph.
Right.
Because Lee, my mate, he owns one of those Speed Triples.
One of the speed triples, yes. That's sort of this look. That is really the look of a speed triple. In fact, if you put one of those insect headlamps on it,
It almost, yeah,
like a
that's
speed
right, exactly.
not a bad thing though.
No, that's right.
And so this is a 1200,
Yeah.
and how did you come to 1200?
Well, okay. When we first started this project, we want to make a parallel twin.
Yes.
So we decided, well, how big should we make it? First of all, we thought, 1,000cc would be good, But then I do a lot of work for an outfit in Wellington called Powerhouse.
Right.
Now they specialise in servicing Porsches, Porsche 911s,
Okay.
and others. But they've got the flat six motor.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's an air-cooled motor.
Yes.
Now, those motors started off at 2 litres. Then they enlarged it to 2.2, 2.4,
Yes.
2.7, 3 litres,
And
3.2,
3.5,
3.6.
3.6.
They go up to 3.6.
Right.
Now, at 3.6 litres with 6 cylinders, that's 600 cc's each.
Yes.
So 2 of those cylinders would make 1,200 cc.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now,
Is that you're going to tell me that's a Porsche piston?
well, but the bore and stroke dimensions
Yes.
we took from the Porsche
Right,
911.
okay.
Now, my friend who owns the Porsche workshop, he had some spare parts, cylinder heads and barrels and all that, which he gave to me.
Right.
And we could take a lot of measurements and stuff off
Okay.
that. And so we chose to use the Porsche 911 bore and stroke
I'm
dimensions.
assuming that by the time they got to 3.6 later, it was a short stroke.
It was very over square.
Yes,
100
yes.
mil bore by
Yes.
76 stroke.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And so that we chose those dimensions. That's how the 1,200 cc's
Okay.
came about.
Right. And so Porsche probably hit its limit at that point.
That's right.
For that
exactly.
design.
Yeah. Well, because on those Porsche motors, they never ever changed the pitch between the cylinder centres.
Right.
And so as it got bigger and bigger, the cylinders got closer and closer
Yes,
together,
yes.
and less fin area and all of that. You
Right,
know.
right,
And so
right.
100 mil
So
bore.
are yours separated the same as the Porsche?
Well, no,
or no,
you've
you've
got a
got
bigger space.
Okay.
Because you see that balancing system.
Oh, of course, that's got to
means
fit
we
there.
had to have a wider space.
So you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4 piece.
Four bearings in the crankshaft.
And it's a 3-piece?
No,
No,
the
4,
crank's all made out of
5.
one piece.
It is one
It's all
piece.
machined out of a solid bar of steel, that crankshaft.
How does? Oh, they're all bolted. They're all bolt-ons.
Well, that's a big end. You know, it's just
Yeah.
like any other big end.
Just
This
on my
is the-
Ducatis, they're not. You have
No,
to
they're
press
one
it
piece and it's
apart.
pressed together. But
Yeah.
this is all like a car engine.
Yes.
It's just a one-piece
Okay,
crankshaft
yeah.
with split big ends.
Oh, that works.
Yeah.
And is this in there? Or is that for scavenging,
Okay,
or what's that for?
No. See those teeth on the crankshaft?
Yes.
They're in the crankcase itself. There is a sensor, and
Oh.
it picks up counts those
Yes.
teeth as it goes by, and it sends that to the computer, to the engine management computer.
Just for general use?
Well, what that does, first of all, it tells the computer how fast the engine's turning,
Yes.
and it tells it what position, the crank position. So when it comes
Can I
to
use
fire
that?
the spark plug and all that,
That's what I was
this is
thinking.
used
You
to
can
time
use
it.
it for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Which is kind of a universal system that cars and motorbikes have.
Yeah.
They have a toothed wheel.
The
you
old, my previous ignition had that. It just had one thing,
I know that's
one
right,
thing
yeah,
and
one,
it'll boink,
one, yeah, okay.
boink.
But these are more sophisticated nowadays, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's what that's to do. That's to do with the engine management, and it times the spark, and it also times the fuel injection.
Right.
But we like the look of the parallel twin.
Yeah, let me have a look at that around the front. Let's have a look at this. But it's you know, you've got it leaning forward. What
That's
was
right.
the decision
Okay.
there?
Well, you know, Norton Commandos.
They go forward.
That's right. Yeah, and I think it looks nice. I
Right.
like the look of that.
So you
yeah.
got some validity there with
Yeah,
the.
yeah. And it sort of fits well. It sort of creates more room, you know, to put an airbox and stuff in here.
Yeah.
Cylinder's leaning forward, puts it kind of in line with the down tubes there. I just think it looks better than
Oh,
the
I think
dead
it looks
vertical
better. The
engine.
vertical looks like it's out of the 20s.
Yeah, well, in a way it does. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I thought this was a bit odd.
Okay.
The electric
okay,
start,
no,
just because you couldn't
I
really.
know, but look, the kickstart there. In fact, well, you couldn't because that Kawasaki gearbox has got no provision for kickstart.
Right.
And those bikes never ever had kickstarts, and so
So you just had to fit that in
you
somewhere.
got to put that in. Yeah.
Yes, but if you were redoing this again, would you integrate that somehow? Do you think?
Okay, this business here looks a little bit funny. Now I'll tell you what that's for, what's inside there. And here there's a starter motor, and then there's this, and then here this is the alternator in here.
Yes.
Okay. And at the back of that alternator
got
is
a
a gear,
yes.
which has a sprag clutch on it.
Yes.
I don't know if you know what
Yes,
that.
yes,
you know
yes.
what that means. Okay. So when the starter motor's turning it, it drives it one way, but then when the engine fires,
Picks up, it releases.
Yeah, it releases.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, but what it's got here, there is a slipper clutch in there.
All right.
So that if the engine were to backfire, it won't kick this backwards.
Right.
It'll just slip.
Right.
And it won't damage
And
it.
that's just a little
It's a little slipper,
one that
a little
has
multi-plate clutch with
Right.
springs, you know, pushing
just
it
has
together.
enough to keep it going
Just
forward,
enough so
but
it
if it
drives,
gets hit,
but it can't kick back and wreck it.
right.
When we first designed this, that starter motor was off a single-cylinder Honda, and we thought that we would need to have a decompressor, you know, to hold the
Oh,
exhaust
right,
valves
yeah,
open.
yeah.
And we thought this might be struggling to start it, right? And so we built in here.
Oh yes, I see them.
Yeah,
Yes.
but we
Didn't need it?
Didn't need it. Kicks it
Okay.
over easily, no
Okay.
bother at all.
Right.
So we just took them out. Yeah.
Nice.
But then we could reinstate them here.
What's your compression on this? Do you know?
It's 9.4.
That's
It's not.
quite
It's
low.
not.
No, it's not high
a
at
hell
all.
of a high.
What is what's the output of this?
Well, we haven't had
Oh,
it
you
on
haven't had
we
it on
don't
a
know,
dyno.
yeah. In fact, we've only had it going in such a short time that
Yeah.
we haven't sort of run it flat out yet, you know. Because at this point,
Less than 100.
it'd be less than 100.
Less than 100,
yes.
right?
It'd
90
be-
horsepower
yeah,
or
something
something like that. Yeah, that'd be
But
guess about
the
that.
aim of it was
Yeah.
not peak horsepower, but torquiness at low revs.
Yes.
And we designed the inlet ports and the valves and the cams and all that. It's all aimed at torque at low revs.
Is there enough airflow through this? Do you
Yes,
think?
there is, because you see, that balancing system
Yes.
required that the cylinders be wide.
So you can have.
Big air
Is that
gap
why you've
between-
got this big widened outlet here, where the headers come out? You see
Well,
how
it's a
they
four,
sort
it's a
of
4-valve head. There's 2 exhaust valves.
right?
And there's 2 exhaust ports at each cylinder.
Are they separate?
Yeah, they're separate.
They are
Yeah.
separate.
They
Oh,
don't
okay.
merge in the head.
Oh, okay. It
They
looked like it
in that
merged.
manifold piece.
I see. Okay. Very
So there's
interesting.
quite a big air gap between the cylinders, which means
Gives
good
you
airflow
plenty of
between.
space.
Now, some of those British bikes,
They
as
don't.
they got bigger and bigger,
Yes.
they didn't widen the bore centers.
Yes.
So the cylinders are just about touching each other.
Yes.
There's no air going between,
That's always a
but
problem.
this does. So you'll be able to run this as air cooled, oil cooled. Well, it's air and oil cooled. There's an oil radiator there.
It's air, yeah. So there's no water radiator.
No water radiator. No. It's all all the fins and that, but that's just an oil cooler. See those pipes going in and out of and it returns back to the sump, down there. In fact, the oil pump is actually a double oil pump. There's 2 oil pumps side by side, all in the one housing.
Right.
And one pump pressurises the main bearings and all that.
Right.
And the other pump just circulates oil through the cooler.
Okay.
So it's a wet sump.
Yep. Yeah.
Mark II.
Yeah.
What's the biggest change you'd make? Like say we were discussing the sump before. Do you think you'd change that?
I would
Keep all
retain
that?
that wet sump idea.
Yep.
Yeah, I would. Because dry sump, it adds more complication. You need a separate oil tank and external hoses and things.
Yes. Yes.
The wet sump is just a tidier arrangement,
Yeah.
and it's caused no problem.
But otherwise, you'd pretty much keep the basics
okay,
exactly as is.
The only changes I would do, there are some internal minor changes
Yes.
to do with the structure of the thing. But all the basic dimensions, like the cylinder, the bore and stroke, the cylinder centres, all the positions of the gearbox shafts and all of that, it's all very good, And the way we've got this packaged, it would be good if I had a drawing of the thing split apart.
Right.
Inside there, you've got the engine part. Then below that, you've got the balancing rig. Then behind it, you've got the gearbox. And then between the gearbox and the engine, there's an oil pump, which is driven off the clutch. And then below that, there's an oil filter. There's a plate under here, which you undo that and you drop that out, and the filter drops out of there. And then in here, there's a pickup, a mesh screen pickup that sucks the oil, to the pump.
Okay.
And all of that stuff is all packaged, and there's no wasted space, and everything fits in there, and there's still enough room for about 3.5 litres of oil.
Right.
And so it's beautifully compact. Now,
And you've ridden it?
yes.
You have? How was that?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, it's done what we hoped it to do,
Yes.
which is talky, right off the line.
It's certified. It's actually...
Yes, it's
Gosh.
all legal.
Right.
It's registered for road.
What about emission controls?
Well, I'm sure it wouldn't pass. Well, you've got Euro 4.
Exactly.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah,
it wouldn't
yeah,
pass that, But in New Zealand, it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you like,
Yes.
And,
So if you sold in the UK, you might.
you'd be in trouble, yeah. And that would be very hard to get right.
For a low volume, there must be
So
some...
there
some
are
kind of-
exemptions, but I don't know what number you're allowed.
Yeah. And the splits...
Horizontally
Horizontally
split,
only, just-
Well, I mean, this is, there it is, that's the crankcase. That's
And is there a split?
And the join line is...
It's just there somewhere.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
see it.
yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And then the sump, of course, is another piece, that joins on the join line of the sump here. And it's held on by those screws here.
Last question. Do you think Alan Millyard could make a triple out of this?
He'd make a 6-cylinder out of it, or a V8, or a V4. That's what he... Oh, yeah.
I could just see that. I could just see him sticking
He's
putting another
amazing
one
what
on
that
the
guy
outside.
does,
It's mind-blowing.
staggering, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
I think he showed us all how it doesn't have to be quite as precise as one
right,
thinks.
yeah. Well, I don't know how the hell he gets
Yeah.
away with it, but I mean, he takes a 4-cylinder crankcase and he saws it in half and he welds the ends. How he keeps it in line.
Files it.
I don't know how he keeps
He doesn't
it
even
straight.
mill it.
I'm buggered if I know. So
So
I, don't know
I think
how
he gets away with a lot.
He gets away with it. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely amazing
Very impressive.
what he does.
Yes. Look, really appreciate you having a chat to
All
me.
right,
That
okay,
was
no, that's
answered
fine.
everything I wanted to know.
Yeah, good.
And
All right.
good luck. We'll keep an eye on what happens next.
Well,
we
what
don't
happens
know.
next?
Who
Yeah, I know.
knows? Who knows?
We need a wealthy benefactor, but so do lots of other people. But if you wanted to build and sell a bike like this, unless you could get away with some kind of low volume exemption or something, I don't know what the rules all are, but you'd run into all sort of problems with,
Yes.
with certification and all that. So yeah, but we're lucky we beat that.
Well, it's very impressive. Thanks for the chat.
All right, no, that's great.
You are
John Appel is my name.
John Appel
Yeah,
there.
Okay,
Lee's
that's
co-conspirator John Appel.
Yeah, that's
I read a
that's-
book by
Yes.
Hopwood.
Okay, well,
Discuss the
now
idea.
you were asking about the origins of this thing. Now, there's a guy.
What did he
called-
do?
Well, okay, Bert Hopwood
Yes.
was an engineer, and he was with the British motorcycle industry from about 1930 or so, right to the end in the mid-70s when the thing it all collapsed.
Right.
So he saw it from right through to the end.
Right.
Yeah, and he was an engineer and designer, and he designed Norton. Before the war, Triumph made a parallel twin. Edward Turner, he's quite a famous designer.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And that was very successful. And then after the war, all the other British companies realised that they would have to make a parallel twin as well. He remained with the industry right up until about 1974 or so, and the
Okay.
whole thing died. Now, he was one of the few people in the British industry who realised that you couldn't keep making the same thing year in, year out.
Oh, they tried.
They tried, yeah. Didn't want to spend any money. But he knew that if they didn't modernise it, it would die. Okay.
Right.
And so he tried to convince the management, this is what.
This
but
is
they'd
in
run
the
out of money.
70s.
Yes.
This
yeah.
is right.
About 1970, 71. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And he came up with this idea to make a family of bikes all built round a single cylinder motor, right? So we had a 250 single, and you had a 500 twin, a 3-cylinder 750, a 4-cylinder 1000, and they even had a V5 of 1250cc. He designed all that. None of it ever got built.
No, I was
because
just trying to think what that would have
It
been.
all died before that happened. But he realised that the 500 twin version would have to have some form of balancing system.
Right.
Because by that stage, people no longer accepted, that severe vibration.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he published in the book.
Did he suggest that?
He's got drawings in the book of basically that principle
Right.
of balancing. And the book is called Whatever Happened to the British Motorcycle Industry. And it was published in about 1982 or something like
Yes.
that. And I got a hold of that book. And when I got to that point, I thought, shit, what a fantastic idea that is, And then I thought, well, could we adapt this system to an existing British twin motor, And Warwick and I looked at all this, and we looked at all the different motors, and we decided, well, there's no easy way of doing that, And so, okay, what do we do next? And that's when we came up with the idea of using the Porsche barrels and heads and all that, But again, there were problems with that because the Porsche motors, the cylinders are horizontal.
Yes.
So the heads sit like this.
Yes.
So the drainage of the oil from the cam gear drains down that way.
Right.
And when you sit it upright, all that doesn't work, Oh, shit, so that's no good. So then we thought, well, the only way we can do this, we've got to start with our own clean sheet of paper and go right back to the beginning.
Right.
And design it ourselves. And that's how it came
That was
about.
really the key thing.
is the key.
So
I
no
read
one
that
else, people like, XS 650, Yamaha, or that Kawasaki retro, with the...
Yes,
with
the W800.
Yeah,
Yes.
Do any of them have something?
Well, the XS650,
Yes.
that is sort of a contemporary of the Triumph Bonneville.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah,
It was
yes.
like their
It looks
Japanese
like a
copy
Japanese Bonneville.
of the Triumph.
That's right. They just got the same vibration problems
Yeah.
as the Bonnevilles.
Yeah.
Because there's no balancing system in it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything.
The
I was wondering.
W800
Yes.
does have a balancing system.
That's a much later
it's got
bike.
A shaft, it's got a single balance shaft. Now,
Okay.
it should really have two, but it's got one.
Okay.
Now, it's a hell of a lot smoother than the 1960s
Right,
Bonneville,
right.
but by today's standards, it's still not. People still complain about the vibration of it.
Yeah.
I would consider it moderate, but today's riders think, oh, that vibrates badly, And so, but this, well, I don't know if I told you, but when we first got this motor going,
Yes.
we had it just sitting on a little test bench rig,
Is this going to be
little
one of these
stand.
stories where you balance a coin on there?
Well, not quite a coin,
Right.
a cup of water.
Okay.
We had
yeah,
a cup of water,
yeah.
we filmed it. We had
Right.
a cup of water on the rocker box, or the
Yes.
cam box, and you rev up the motor, it doesn't even ripple the water.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
we
was that
mentioned-
like that when you rode it? How did you...
There are no periods or anything like that. The system guarantees that there is no vibration because at every crank angle, the forces oppose each
Never
other.
gets into any kind of
No,
resonance
no, it
or
doesn't,
nothing?
no,
Nothing happens? No harmonics that make anything?
No.
Okay.
Because in the old British bikes, when you idle, the forces
Yeah,
are doing
yeah,
this,
yeah.
and you rev it up a bit more, then the handlebars
That's
are going,
right,
and,
that's what I'm-
and the back mud guard's going, but this does none of it.
Okay.
With the old system, they had what they call a balance factor. You might have heard that term, but like Triumphs or any single cylinder bikes, there's a bob weight on the crankshaft
Yes.
itself, right? Now you can make that weight bigger or smaller, but no matter what you do, you cannot. It is physically impossible to eliminate the vibration. You can just kind of change the character of it.
Yeah.
And so that is subject to experimentation.
Yeah.
But with this system, it's just purely by calculation. There's only one right answer.
So do you still have significant counterbalances on the crank itself or nothing?
No.
Is the crank completely balanced?
Weight is balanced by reciprocating weight.
Right.
Rotating rate is balanced by rotating weight.
And so the crank is just balanced
Balanced just
evenly
as
all the
its
way
own.
around?
Yes.
Okay.
But what you have, like I said to you, you weigh the conrods and you weigh the big end of it, and then what you have to do, you have to make a ring which is split, which clamps onto the crank pin.
Yes, of course.
And the weight of that ring equals the weight of the big end of the conrod. So when you put the crankshaft in a balancing machine, you have to have those rings on the crank
there.
pins, which simulates the big end of the rods.
Right.
And then you balance it like that.
If I were a cynic, I'd say you just ruined the character of the old British twin.
Well, how much
That crossed my mind.
How much character do you want?
You could tune it in. Do you think you could tune it in
Well,
by
you could. Yeah,
taking off a bit?
No, if you made that weight too heavy or too light,
Yeah.
you'd give it vibration.
You could actually offer...
But because the whole theme of the thing is no vibration,
Right.
I wouldn't do that. you
Yes.
see. Yeah. Well, you see, I had a 650 Triumph, and then a mate of mine bought a Commander. I don't know how much you know about, but you know the Commander's
I know the
engine's rubber
Commanders,
mounted.
Right, right.
Okay, yeah. And he said, have a ride on the Commander. Right. I had one ride on it. Got to have one. Yeah. It's so smooth. Yeah. It was like a revelation. You know. I just
Rubber
loved
mounts.
it. Yeah, rubber mounted. Yeah. Yep.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Yep. That was larger. This is kind of what inspired this. You know, it's like a better, more modern version of the Commander in a way.
Well, that's great. That was a good chat. I'm very pleased I managed to get
Well,
hold of
cleared up
you.
a few things there.
Yes, those were the questions in my head about
Okay.
this. We're going to have to run. I have to
Yes, well,
vote
it must
for a
be now
bike.
that time. It must be just
Thank you
about
again.
5 o'clock. You're off, are you? You'll turn that off. Yeah.
Okay.
There you can see the rig down there.
That's it. Good stuff.